Web3. Yeah, I was trying not to say Web3 on this podcast, but we can talk about Web3. But Web3, I think Web3 is onto something, but way ahead of their time. Like a lot of people have to adopt a lot of different things. But
today, like people, not most people, but like people that are aware of that are active in the Web3 space, they actually have wallets on their browser. So if you have a web game, you can just connect your Web3 wallet, and then you bypass, even you don't need Apple Pay for that. Like payments are even getting easier on web. Yeah, I think this is one of the important drivers.
Yeah, Web3 is almost solving a different problem, but there's overlap in the solving.
Definitely.
So you can kind of see where the universe is pushing us, and it's definitely, I feel, away from app stores. So that's my guess. Now, as a CEO of a mobile gaming company, am I worried? Yes, I'm worried, because I built my entire knowledge stack. Our IP equity is all in the business model that we have today, which is app stores, downloads, conversion funnels, scalability, cross promo, all these things. So if that universe switches beneath us, the good news is we're going to be ahead of the curve. But
definitely.
But it's interesting. But are there going to be new entrants to the market?
Yeah, uncertain times. They always worry. Since I'm glad you mentioned your worries. What are you guys working on today, and what are your plans for the next couple of years as YallaPlay?
So YallaPlay, we've been growing for the past 3 years, month over month, just scaling. So we're continuing. We're kind of in a rinse and repeat cycle right now. We're building out more games that plug into our engine. We've developed technology that allows us to cut development time for the specific genre of games from about 1.5 years all the way down to 4 months. So now we're aggressively building out more and more games, scaling out the teams, building more games, launching. And because we're a portfolio play, like the company is not hinged on one successful game. We're just after building as many profitable games as possible. And if one or two, if all of them become major hits, great. We're north of $1 billion valuation. But if none of them become a hit, because the cost per game is so low, then we're still sitting on a very valuable portfolio of games. So that's been our model since the beginning. I've always been the anti-hit business model, and that was actually my pitch to VCs, which is, I don't believe in the hit model. I'm not going to dedicate my life to try to getting a hit.
Yeah, I like that.
I try to play darts, and I'd like to get value from hitting the board, right?
Yeah.
And I can throw as many darts as I want, but I don't want my entire life to be based on me hitting the bullseye. So we built a company around that. Now, it did take time to build the architecture and infrastructure that allows us to, rapid deploy and rapid produce. And not only this, autonomously live operate our games, because most of the monetization is from live ops. A lot of meta loops monetization, a lot of data, a lot of statistics, a lot of balancing. So all these systems are now fully built out and automated. So now we're just in factory building mode.
Super interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I think it cost a lot of white hair.
What's one thing that today and you didn't know when you started, like 8 years or 9, like whatever, when you started gaming, that you would advise new people starting in the industry to avoid or to do? Maybe it's a positive thing.
Yeah, we had a good story. I have to talk about your story in a second, but we had a good story, but it was a bit more elongated than it had to be. Like, there's a few things that I've learned that I wish I've known like a year ago, would have done faster. But to answer your question, and I'm trying not to get too deep on this, right? But there's like 2 categories of things. There is, classic business gaming advice stuff, right? Things to do, what not to do, technical things, decisions. And those are easy to teach to young entrepreneurs. But then there are the personal stuff, the character building stuff, the things that you learn as a CEO, the challenges, the ups and downs. And I just realized there's no way to teach this to people, because I had the opportunity of mentoring a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I try to talk to them about these things, and it's very difficult for them to understand it. They haven't lived it. Some people call it like the rite of passage. right? You almost have to go through the difficult times to learn, and there's like no other way to
learning out of your own pocket.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very interesting. And I try to advise entrepreneurs and here, make this decision. It's almost like hard to teach wisdom, if that makes sense. And I feel that our journey, at least my personal journey as a CEO, 80% of it is this stuff. It's like learning new things about my character, learning new things about how I react to different things, self-organization, my thoughts about all these different things. Like, I'm learning them I don't want to say the hard way, but this is where character development is happening the most. And I feel that now, armed with this, I can go do things at a very accelerated pace than before. But I feel like it makes sense at the end of the day. Like it can't be
for any,
otherwise we just have.
For any career, you'd be building your character.
Yep.
But for CEOs of gaming companies, I think this is like it's more of emotional control.
I'll give you an example where I'm trying to go with this. I was watching I can't remember where, but a podcast online. It's like a billionaire out of India, and they were kind of asking him like his story, how he started, and then I didn't watch the whole thing. It was 3 hours long, but bits and pieces of it. And what I learned from him, one of the core important things that made him successful is he had what he calls an MBA degree at the age of 14.
Yeah.
Right. So he learned a lot of different things from his family, from his surroundings, from kind of the universe he was placed in. And I feel like that's super important. Like he had to go through these things, and that helped him accelerate. And I feel like that journey in gaming is like super accelerated because you go through a lot of navigation of difficulties, whether it's like funding or team growing or working like hours or, Google and Apple pulling the rug beneath every single time.
Super dynamic.
It's very dynamic. So it's very interesting and a good place to learn. But those are the things that I feel if you master those and become better at them, then, building out companies becomes a little bit easier. And then the risk of, or like the chance of success becomes higher as well. So I know it's a very classic answer, but I feel like there's a big correlation between, not compared to other industries, but in gaming, because it's like so dynamic, I feel like the correlation between the team skill and the success is very, very high. And I feel because of this, a lot of VCs, the way they pick out companies is by the team, especially seed VCs, gaming VCs. They really say, hey, show me your team. What have you done before? Right?
Yeah.
I like the team. All right. I trust you. Go build whatever game you guys are thinking about. Team is like the most important thing when it comes to raising seed round in the gaming space.
What's interesting about the game space is that it's not enough for you to build a product that works or that is functional. Not even a product market fit.
Yep.
It has to be fun. Because you're competing with Facebook, you're competing with TikTok, you're competing. It's an entertainment product. I think this is what you mentioned when you talked about the passion of the product. This is the difference between gaming and then other industries. And it makes it a dynamic environment.
Yeah, you're right. I like your analogy when you compare it to the movie industry.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, the movie industry is a very passion-driven product. But if you get the best actors, you have a higher chance of making more money. I'm not an expert in movies, but I would assume so, right? And it's kind of the same in, maybe to a much lesser degree, in gaming. Unfortunately, in gaming also, I heard that, anecdotally, you can't replicate it. So if you get like a super genius game designer, and he builds a super amazing game, and you get that same designer, tell him, hey, build the next game, it doesn't work. There's no...
Yeah, it depends on the type of game, because hyper casual was a replicable model.
Yeah,
it was like testing. If the game works, it works. If it doesn't, like we move forward to the next one. So it was technically a replicable model.
But were there teams that were continuously giving a higher chance of success for games?
Definitely.
So that speaks to the the talent,
I think the passion.
Yeah, talent and the passion.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are your thoughts?
I mean, the question was for what's an advice that we can give to early entrepreneurs in the gaming space?
I think the number one advice would be study the market, find out what you're passionate about, make sure what you're building is a right fit for what you're going after. Make sure you have like a pre-planned business case before you write the first line of code. So have a plan going in, because it's a very rocky sea. Things are going to change all the time. And if you don't have a proper plan going into this, you're going to get completely lost. And then
a proper skeleton. Because plans,
a proper core, right?
Core, yeah, definitely.
Proper core that's well studied, and I think the feasibility study checks out. So you have to kind of approach the game from a passionate angle, but also from a market fit angle. Like there has to be a market for what you're doing. And again, I'm not trying to kill passion or creativity, but typically in the gaming space, I feel that very, very, very brand new concepts, never done before, have a very high chance of failure. But borrowing from an unknown working mechanic and tweaking it, adding your sauce on it seems to be a nice recipe, right?
Yeah,
so kind of
the market works.
Exactly. So there's a lot of kind of advice one could give to younger studios. But again, I feel like if you're starting your career in gaming, want to be in gaming for forever, I think that first game that you work on should be also educational for yourself, right? It's like anybody starting their career.
I want to touch on the advice to entrepreneurs. This is something that I've lately come to understand, or come to actually that came to the surface for myself. I feel that if you're starting anything, not just in gaming, if you're starting something, and when people tell you never fall in love with your idea or with your game or whatever, I think the main idea behind this is it's a numbers game. What I mean is, if you're so attached to your first idea, you wouldn't be able to let it go and launch a second idea. But if you have like 10, 20 ideas, one of them will stick.
Yeah.
This applies to gaming, applies to user acquisition.
Yeah, fail quickly, basically.
Fail quickly, and the market is huge.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people to cater for. So if you don't find your product market fit here, maybe you'll find it somewhere else. Maybe the market is different. Maybe the product is wrong. So it's about testing the different aspects of your product in different demographies and different geographies. I'm sure there's always a market for your product. It's up to you to find it. This is something that I didn't know when I started.
Yeah.
It's something that I experienced throughout my career.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be attached to my products. I used to love my games, and whenever you see like a bad review on your game, you'd be upset. You start thinking about life, But then if you zoom out a bit, you see that you have like 4.5 stars on your game with 20,000 reviews. Okay, that there is one person that didn't like this, but at the end of the day, it's a numbers game.
Yeah,
that's the idea behind this.
That's a very strong advice as well. We had to, pivoting is very important. We've done it before. And also knowing when to kill a game is like super important as well. So it's okay to, I like this. So it's again, but I wouldn't call this
a numbers game.
No, it's not that cause. Like there's a lot of sort of like there's this cloud of advice that I think you have to kind of follow all the different things. This is one of the powerful ones, as you mentioned. But it's a delicate balance, right? You have to remember that in an organization, at least in my company, I'll speak in my company, we have developers and artists, right? And I have to make sure that they're super excited about this game. No, guys love this game, right? And then on the business side, on the analytics side of things, on the financial side of things, is where we're monitoring the market, right? We're focused on the market. Like your advice is to like solo entrepreneurs or like small teams, basically.
Yeah.
We focus across all things, of course, 100%. But when it comes to like a slightly larger organization, I feel like, artists, developers, you have to be 100% passionate. Heck, my job as a manager and CEO of a company is just to make sure everyone's super passionate. And then other different teams, accounting and finance or whatnot, are monitoring the industry, making sure, okay, is there still a market for this game that we started building a year and a half ago? Are the metrics still there? Did market conditions change that make this game unviable based on our earlier plans? And sometimes you just have to your advice, make sure that the leaders are not super married to the game because they have to make the right financial decision. All right, market change, everything's different. User acquisition cost is too expensive. We either try to make this game work and spend another year of development, or we kill it, build a different game. Here's my runway. So yeah, you have like a certain amount of oxygen and you're deep underwater. So yeah, you got to choose how to survive.
I think when you say you are data centric, like the explanation for a 5-year-old is it's a numbers game. This is like how I see it.
So the thing is, it's interesting because your background is in hyper casual.
Yeah.
Right. So you have the option of, you're gonna hate me.
Changing.
Yeah, changing. Disposable games, I call it.
Yeah, definitely.
Disposable games. Build a prototype, a game. Each game was built in like what, couple months, a month, 3 months,
couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've
Couple
built
of
more
weeks.
than 60 games.
I come from a different universe where it's a 1-year production cycle, and that's an interesting discussion. I like, because I'd love to learn. Your mindset is probably very like, it's all about the numbers. Launch this prototype, test it, and I love that. Boom, 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 something hits. In my world, everything is a bit extended. Like, you have to spend at least 6 months to have something that is even decently good enough to get numbers on, right? Fine, let's say 4 or 5 months. But so we do that. But because we know that these games are disposable, then we spend a lot of time in the planning and studying and really making 100% sure that if I throw this dart, it's going to stick somewhere
on the board.
So we do a lot of planning, we do a lot of things, look at our strengths. We try to, we spend a lot of time planning. Like, our game design documents are like 120 pages long, for example. And this is just the main document with like hyperlinks to all the data now. So a lot of energy goes into the game just to make sure, everything's done correctly.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned hyper casual, because hyper casual is like a marketing. It's based on marketing.
Yeah.
So it's like a marketing agency, and marketing agencies, apart from content creation, they focus on data.
Yeah.
On masses, lead generation, user acquisition. Like, if you're marketing a product, you only care about the numbers, and this is what hyper casual was at the time. Yeah, I'm glad you corrected my perception.
No, it's cool, because I noticed we were answering the question from 2 different lenses.
Yeah.
But still, the advice still applies, which is,
definitely,
you gotta look at the data, right? Even if I spent 1.5 years on this game, if it has no feet, I'm gonna kill it. Luckily, we didn't have that except when we were on a website. So when I started building the website, I thought the website's gonna be it. And then at some point, I'm like, there is no money here. I had to kill it, raise VC money, and start over almost. So by using our same AI and technology, so there was some adoption there. But yeah, that was an example of like realizing, what are we doing? There's merit in the concept, but things need to change to grow.
You mentioned VCs. What advice would you give VCs when it comes to investing in gaming companies?
Yeah, I think there's 2 points I'd like to add. VCs are experts in, looking at their portfolios, evaluating risks, trying to make the best decisions, calculating, all these different financial aspects of things. But when it comes to gaming, I'm talking about general VCs. When it comes to gaming, I think it needs to be treated a little bit differently than classic in startup investments, or like tech plays or SaaS plays or e-commerce plays. Games are their own, they're naturally much higher risk. And VCs spend a lot of time trying to get conviction on the game they're about to invest in. But the truth is, that conviction is probably never going to come. You can look at all the data you want. Mm-hmm. You can spend all this time, and all you're doing is, there's a lot of opportunity cost for time. At some point, you're just going to have to take the leap of faith. You believe in the team, they demonstrate some traction, go for it. I feel like this is the mindset of gaming. There reaches a point where there's no more stuff you can do. Data, analytics, weighting, looking at competition, there's not much of it. You got to take the leap of faith. And I feel that's the advice I would give for local VCs. Because you look at gaming VCs, they write checks pretty quickly. Look at the team, the game, the market, we like this, boom. Local VCs are trying to build, spending maybe, I think, a bit too much time, studying.
Traditional is more like gaming, more than gaming, right?
Yeah.
Or do you mean like local gaming VCs?
So there are no real fully, I could probably mention one name, but there are no real fully dedicated local gaming VCs, right? Most of them come from a classic VC model and now are exploring gaming, but they're still applying the mindset of a classic VC investment. So I think that's like number one advice. It's just, that conviction play. And then last but not least, the understanding that the gaming company cycle is very, very different than other models. Like they really have their own monetization models, own exit strategies, own markets. So they're very different. So I think there's a two pieces of advice, I would give in that regards. And my recommendation is to invest more in gaming. No, but gaming is very lucrative. It just needs to be looked at from a very different lens.
One more question I have. There's something that I'm finding hard to understand. The VC model is usually invest in 10 startups. One would be unicorn, 3 would be successful. The rest would be, some of them would be average. Why is it not the case in gaming? I mean, if we're considering VCs in the region, I mean, shouldn't you invest like in 10 companies and then expect one unicorn? There's not even 10 investments.
We're very early stage in that regards, right? We're very early stage in that regards. Ticket size also for gaming are a bit higher. That's another thing. Again, I'm not an expert on those, but I believe it's much cheaper to go build out an e-commerce website or a very basic...
Production is cheaper, definitely.
Yeah, SaaS business. Initially, it's way cheaper than building...
SaaS, it depends on the business because you have to build a product for a certain period of time before you launch it. So
I guess an MVP. Yeah, building out an MVP, I think in some classic and software-based companies is a bit cheaper than building out a game. Again, I'm not talking about hyper-casual games, but I'm talking about at least, mid-core games, console games. And the reason it's cheaper is because talent as well. Like you need, with SaaS, software developers, that's pretty much it, founder. With gaming, you need your creative. You need your business person. You need your developers. You need like at least a 4, 5, 6 person team just to begin having something that I see as like VC investable to go build something out, an MVP that shows some traction. So naturally, I feel like ticket prices would be a bit higher as well.
Also, revenue models in SaaS are more predictable than gaming.
Exactly. And this is why the risk appetite in gaming is higher, but the rewards should also be higher as well. So,
yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting because, VCs are in the business of risky investments. And their job is to really de-risk this. Again, it depends on the stage of the investment, Series A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
But with gaming, most of the value creation happens in the seed and Series A. Some companies go about creating value later on, but generally speaking, they try to come in seed, invest in as many gaming companies, as many teams as possible. They go all build out their games. Some of these games should make it. So, it's slightly different. Again, I'm not a VC. Never worked for a VC, but I can imagine the models that they apply for other investments directly transferred to a gaming company.
Interesting. Karim, it was a really nice conversation. For those people who are watching us from abroad or even in the region that are looking to follow your work, where would they be able to follow your work?
Yep. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for having me. The best place would be honestly LinkedIn. So there's my personal LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Karim Sedek, and then our Yalla Play page as well. We post occasional content, some behind the scenes of our studio, some of the things that we do. And I'm always happy to help local gaming ecosystem entrepreneurs.
Cool. Thanks, Karim.
Thank you very much. Thank you.